video, I'm going to be going over HTTP, okay? You guys should have all seen HTTP anytime you use your web browser, so we're going to go over exactly what this is at a high level, and then we're going to talk about how we can do HTTP kinds of things with Python. Okay, so what is HTTP? All right, well, it stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and it's the language of the web. And again, that's not a huge surprise given that you've seen HTTP at the beginning of every website address that there is, okay? And basically what it is it's a protocol, they call it. It's a way for, it's a way for browsers to communicate with web servers. All right, that's effectively what it is, okay? And so there is a working group who kind of sat down and came up with this sort of common language that will be used for browsers to communicate with web servers. Okay, and so it's a lot more complicated than that, to be honest, but this is a pretty good super high level overview, and that's sort of what this presentation is. Okay, so here's kind of what an example HTTP request is. Okay, so imagine if you're a browser, right? So I'm using Internet Explorer or something like that, or Chrome, and I go to foobar.com. All right, this is kind of what's happening under the covers, invisible to you. Okay, is that your browser is actually creating this message, and it has get and then the file that you want. So in this case it'd be hello.html, it could be index.html. This is the version of HTTP. The user agent gives a little bit of information about the browser that's requesting the resource, so in this case it's a Mozilla based browser running on Windows NT. Okay, and these are all called headers and stuff. Again, it's not super important to know exactly what this is. What is important to know is that every time you use your web browser to go somewhere, it's generating something that looks kind of like this, okay, behind the scenes. All right. And so this request goes off to the server, okay? So if I'm going to foobar.com or something like that, then the server will respond with something like this, okay? And so basically what it's going to respond with is it's going to say, the 200 is a status code, which means I got your request and I was able to return you an answer, okay? So the web server just kind of sits there waiting for requests, and as it gets requests, it gives you answers. So the 200 there, that's what that's indicating. Okay. The rest of the stuff in here, I don't know why my mouse isn't moving anymore. Okay, there it goes. All right, so these are headers. So this is the date that the response happened. This is the web server software that's being used. This is when the content was last modified. This is how big the content is. Now, this content type is important. This is the type of content that it is. So in this case, it's HTML content. It could be any other type of content. It could be a music file. It could be an image. It could be JSON, okay? And then this right here, this would be the response body. This is what's actually returned from the server, okay? So in this case, it's a bunch of HTML, okay? So if you have had any classes about HTML or web development or web programming, this is an example of what the web server is going to return to you. Okay, so I'm going to show you this really quickly using the web browser first of all. Okay, so let me go here. Okay, so I'm going to just go to ESPN.com, and before I do that, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to turn on the developer tools here in Chrome, okay? Because this will allow me to actually see the requests and responses, okay? So I'm going to go to ESPN.com, all right? And so it's so you see ESPN.com's displaying in here, and you see a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, this is all of the different files that are being loaded when I go to ESPN. So all these images and graphics and all this kind of stuff. Okay, but if I scroll back up to the top, all right, here's the page that I wanted. Okay, and you can see here are my request headers. Okay, so what I was showing you before. So it's a get request, and here's the address and all this kind of stuff. And then here's the response information that I got back. So it set all of these headers. Okay, and then if I actually look at the response, I can click on this. Okay, you see that what it actually returned me. Okay, when I typed in ESPN.com to my browser, the server that's running in Bristol, Connecticut, ESPN.com, actually returned all this HTML, okay? And then your browser interprets the HTML and renders it where you can see all the pictures and the layout and everything, okay? So you see that there's all this. This is fairly long, but there's some JavaScript in here, okay? There's hyperlinks. There's all kinds of stuff that this returned, okay? So that's basically what's happening under the covers, okay? Now, I want to show you the same thing, but instead of using a web browser, okay, to access ESPN.com, I'm going to actually do it from the command line, all right? So if I go here, all right, there's built into Macs and Linux systems, there's a utility called curl. Windows probably has something similar, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Okay, so I'm going to go curl, and I'm going to go https www.espn.com. Okay, and when I do this, you'll see whoa, okay, a whole bunch of text just shot up all over my page. All right, so let me do this again, but this time I'm going to pipe it to more so that it will. Let's see. Pipe it to more so that I can actually read it. Okay, so again, here you see I got back some HTML. I'm getting a bunch of HTML information. I'm getting some meta tags. And if I go, I can sit here and scroll through. Okay, so this is some JavaScript that's embedded inside the HTML. Okay, so this is what ESPN.com is actually returning me. Okay, now this isn't particularly useful if I'm not a web browser, right? So because I'm doing this from the command line, I have all this ugly looking stuff that isn't easily digestible. Okay, so that's why you have web browsers. Web browsers can interpret things like image src and say, oh, that's a picture, so I'll display a picture, okay, and things like that. Okay, but you can see that this is a pretty extensive thing. Okay, so all right, so I've seen two different ways that I can communicate with a web server. Okay, one is that I can use my browser and I can type in, okay, a URL, and that will actually issue this HTTP request, okay, to ESPN.com. The web server running on ESPN.com will respond with whatever it responds with. In this case, it's a whole bunch of HTML, okay? And then I showed you the exact same thing using the command line, okay? But instead of it interpreting the HTML and showing to me with nice pictures and everything, you're just getting the actual HTML, okay? And so the question is, can I do the same thing in Python? And the answer is yes, okay? So let me go back to my PowerPoint. All right, so we showed the command line tools. So here's how you do it with Python, okay? There is a module in Python called requests, okay? It's possible that you'll have to install the requests module. I don't think that one comes for free, okay? So it depends on what operating system and what kind of computer and things you're using in order to install this. If you're using Windows, you need to go out to Google and say, installing Python requests module for Windows, and it'll show you how. If you have pip, okay, then installing requests is very, very easy. All right, and so let me show you quickly how to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to go into the temp area, and I'm going to create a new Python. So I'm going to do Python. So I'm going to create a new virtual Python. And what that is that basically says, rather than use my normal system Python, see, so if I type which Python 3, that's using the one that I have installed in library frameworks. Okay, I can do source. Okay, so now I'm using this virtual Python, which is local right here to this directory that I'm in. Okay. you don't really need to worry about all that. The reason why I'm telling you this is because I want to show you this. If I do Python and I type in import requests, okay, it'll say, I don't know what requests is. Okay, so the way that you install it, again, this is very easy. Okay, all you have to do is you say pip install requests. Okay, it downloads a bunch of stuff from the web. You obviously have to be connected to the internet when you do this. Gives me some warning, but now if I go in here and I say import requests, it works. Okay, so very easy. And I'm pretty sure that Windows has pip. You know, if you've installed Python correctly on Windows, that should also have a pip, and so you should be able to do the same thing on Windows. But if not, you know, Google is your friend. See if you can figure out how to do that. Okay, so in terms of the actual requests, okay, so what I can do is I'm going to just create a new variable. So I'll say foo, okay, equals requests dot get, okay, and again I can do the https espn.com, okay, just like that. All right. Okay, well, wait. All right, did anything happen? Well, if I look at foo, it says response 200. Okay, so we learned earlier 200 means that everything worked okay, and the server returned me something good. So how do I see what I actually got back? Okay, well, if I type in foo.text, there it shows me, okay, and you see this looks very similar to that stuff I was showing you with curl. Okay, it's a whole bunch of JavaScript and HTML and all kinds of stuff like that, okay? So we know that it worked, okay? Now, you're probably asking yourself, why do I care about that? Why would I want to look at ESPN.com inside the command line or inside of Python, okay? Why wouldn't I instead want to look at it in a web browser, okay? And the answer is, not everything that has a URL like this returns HTML, okay? Sometimes there are things called APIs or RESTful services or data services that return just data, okay? So in those cases, I want to be able to actually get the data back, and I'm not interested in rendering a crazy picture, okay? And I'm not interested in like a visual layout of the information. I'm interested in the data, okay? You'll notice that in this case, I used R, and so there's a variable status code or an attribute status code. So I can do r.statuscode is equal to 200. In other words, as long as everything worked okay, then I'm going to print out the text. Otherwise, I'm going to give some kind of an error. Okay? And so this is what I was just talking about. There's many services available on the internet that rather than returning HTML, instead return JSON. Okay, so there's stock market data and weather, news, sports scores. There's actually a Pokemon API that will return a bunch of information about Pokemon in JSON format, okay? And I just recently created another video on JSON, so if you don't know what JSON is, go watch that video, and you'll see that JSON is, again, just like a format for representing data, okay? And so in that video, I show you how to parse JSON for use in your Python program. So now we're going to look at an example of an API that doesn't return HTML. It's going to return JSON to us, okay? So that's going to be this. Okay, so this is weather.gov. So this is the National Weather Service. So let's click on this. Okay, so this is the National Weather Services API, okay? And so you can go and you can read this, and it says the API is located here. All right. Authentication, formats. There's a bunch of stuff here, but let's just go straight to the examples. Okay. Examples of using the API. All right. So forecasts are divided into 2.5 kilometer grids. Okay. And so here's an example of a URL. Okay. And here's a perfect one right here. For example, https api.weather.gov grid points top. Okay, so I don't know where 3180 is, but let's just go ahead. Let's take this. Okay, we're going to copy this. We're going to say go to, we're going to go to that URL. Okay, so here you see this is returning JSON. Okay, so we have the curly braces and the square brackets, the stuff that we learned earlier in the JSON video. Okay, but here's where it gets interesting. Okay, so we have this context, we have this type, we have geometry. Okay, these are the latitude and longitudes of the area that we're covering here. Okay, then we have this properties. Okay, and then we have this periods. Okay, and if we look in here, look, now you can see this. Look at this. Sunny. Sunny with a high near 55. West wind around 10 miles per hour. So this particular area that we're in, whatever 3997 is, okay, from this afternoon, so from, looks like 16, so 4 to 6 p.m., it's supposed to be sunny with a high near 55, okay? And then from 1800 to looks like 6 the next morning, so overnight, so here we have tonight, it's going to be mostly clear with the low around 34. Okay? So, and you can see it goes on. All right? So I could actually now write a program, okay, using the HTTP request thing that we just went over to go retrieve this actual thing, and it would give me back JSON. Then I can use what I learned about JSON to parse through this and actually print out or otherwise do something with all of this weather data. Maybe I want to write a program that predicts the weather, so I can use this to kind of train my prediction. Okay, so let's actually go ahead and show how we would do this in Python. So I'm going to grab this URL. All right, and I'm going to go over here. So I'll go Python. All right, we're going to import requests. Okay. And we'll do data equals requests.get. All right, I'm just going to paste in that whole URL. Make sure you got the quotes. Okay, and I wait here for a second. All right, now, did I get anything? Okay, it says I got a response 200. Let's see what data.text is. Okay, yes. All right, it looks like I got a bunch of stuff here. See, I got this, a chance of rain showers, mostly cloudy, all this kind of stuff. All right, so now what you need to do is you need to combine this with what we learned in the JSON. Okay, so let's just do that real quick. So if I do import JSON, okay, then I should be able to say, I'll just do a equals JSON.loads, okay, and it's going to be data.text, okay. Before I do that, let me just remember, data is just the response, but data.text is all the actual stuff. Okay, so I can do a equals JSON.loads and do data.text like this. Okay, all right, so now what do I have? All right, now you can see I actually have a Python data structure. Okay, so if I do a.keys, all right, remember, just like in this example I showed you, see how there's context, type, geometry, and properties? Just like in here, context, type, geometry, properties, okay? We know that the information that we want is over here in properties, so it's in properties and then periods, okay? So we should be able to do this. A subproperties, okay? That gives me a bunch of stuff. And then periods. That gives me a bunch of stuff, okay? But now we see that periods is an array. So let's actually just look at the first period. Let's do periods sub 0, okay? So we'll do periods 0, all right? And we see now we're getting to something. So we see this is this afternoon, okay? So I could print out things like period 0 detailed forecast. Okay, and you see sunny with a high near 55, west wind around 10 miles per hour. Okay, so, you know, I could easily do something like this. I could say, let's do temp list equals a properties periods. So we're going to get all the periods, okay, stick them in a list, and then we'll do for I in temp list, okay. And we'll do print I, and then detailed forecast. Okay, so do you see what I'm doing there? So basically what I'm saying is for each, so this temp list is A properties periods, and then for each item in that list, so period 0, periods 1, periods, give me the detailed forecast. Okay, so if I do that, now you can see I got all this forecast stuff. So sunny and then mostly clear. And all right, so that's just one way I can sort of loop through this data structure and get information about the weather. Okay, so I can use that in my application. So again, you're going to be doing this in your assignment and lab. Okay, I'm going to give you a URL for an API, and you're going to have to go out and hit it and collect a bunch of information, and that's what you'll be doing. Okay, so that's again, this is not super complicated. HTTP is actually a lot more complicated, but we're just, scratching the surface, doing the very, very basics, to be able to interact with these services. Okay, there are, as I said earlier in the presentation, there are all kinds of different services that are out there for interacting with. You can get stock market data. Okay, and there are plenty of companies that will sell you this information. There are a few free ones, although they have a limit to the number you can do. And you hit this, you make a HTTP request to this stock market service, and it will return you some JSON about stock prices. So you can find out historical stock prices of Google or something like that if you wanted to. There's weather, news, sports. There's all kinds of different APIs that are out there. Some of them you have to pay for, some of them you don't. Some of them you have to have like an API key, so you have to like sign up for an account and then you can use their API. There's all kinds of different things that are out there. And so this is what actually makes Python and some of these other things interesting, is your ability to utilize these services that other people have provided. Okay. All right. So that's that. Let me know if you have any questions in email or, in discussion forums or whatever. Thanks.